Before we get into this episode, I wanted to introduce one of the partners for the show, Move Pre-Workout. I've been using this over the last year and can massively see the benefit with all my training. And I thought I'd invite Tom along, who was involved in the formulation.
Cheers, Mark. Obviously delighted to be supporting the podcast. And so Move Pre-Workout, we've got a strength-based formula, but this one is specifically designed for endurance athletes. And it's one of the first of its kind. We're just focusing on really high-quality ingredients that are going to benefit endurance performance of any kind. So, yeah, we're really excited by the product and delighted to be supporting podcasts like yourself.
Oh, it's amazing. And this is something that you're specifically taking before your training, before your rides, to be in best possible shape. I'd encourage you to give it a try. Go to movepreworkout.com and for a 20% discount, put the word endurance in at checkout. On with the show. Well, welcome back to the Endurance Podcast series. And where we're set up, we've got the fire pit over to the side here. We're at Lovat Farm shop and cafe, which is just near Kirkhill. There we go. So where are we? Just west of Inverness. It's shut for the winter, which means that we get access to it. Thank you to Quinton and the team. It's absolutely stunning, just off the North Coast 500 route. And I think we organised the ride and record in the right order because it's a bit wet today. I'm glad we got the big ride done yesterday around the Ba Sportive, the Ba Sportive. And before I introduce our guest for this episode, Martin, since we last sat down together for the pod, you've taken on a half Ironman. First half Ironman, proper mission. That's been something you've been training for months and months and months. How'd it go?
So we went to Croatia last weekend and did the Ironman 70.3, which was it was really good fun. So you say training for ages. I've been training a lot on the bike, but I only really started running again in August and swimming again in August. So really only a couple of months training for those. But the swim was quite nice. I'd worked on my stroke, which definitely helped. The bike, I smashed a PB for the distance, and it's fairly flat. But the run was agony. It was really agony. But overall, I did under 6 hours, which was my target. So I was really pleased.
Superb. And when you say your target, I mean, it's always interesting, that idea of what's your target and then what you end up doing, because what was your time?
5:55.
5:55, smashed it.
Yeah.
And I think in the context of the conversation we're about to have, you having done your first half Ironman is pretty apt, because we're going to be in conversation with Eilidh Price, who knows a thing or two about swim, run, cycle, not in that order. So without further ado, let me bring Eilidh Price into the conversation. For those who haven't heard of Eilidh before, fellow Scot, and over the years has taken on some pretty amazing challenges. I'm not going to steal her thunder in terms of telling that story, but listeners and viewers might have heard of the Celtman, sort of extreme Ironman distance event in Scotland, the Norseman up in Norway, and other amazing challenges. And it was amazing to get Eilidh along on the ride yesterday. Always much easier to spend time on the bike and get to know somebody before you sit down and have a chat like this. So without further ado, Eilidh, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me. It's great to be here.
What was your reflections on? Let's start with the ride yesterday, because that's one of the many events you've done and smashed. It's a sportive like none other, I guess. It's a 90 miler. And people might look at that and go, it's just a 90-mile sportive. But there's a few hills in the way. And what was your reflections on not just yesterday's ride, but also that event?
Yeah, it's a really great event, with so many people doing it of different abilities. And I think on paper that route looks not too bad. But then when you're actually out there, some of those hills are pretty spiky. Obviously you have the Ba, which is incredible in itself, but then there are some hills which come after that, which people often underestimate. And it was such a privilege to be out on such a great autumnal day in October, really amazing colours, and maybe at a nicer chatty pace than normally going kind of chewing the handlebars as fast as you can. So it's always such a privilege to be able to ride in that area of Scotland, and it's just so beautiful, and especially to take Martin there, who hadn't ridden there before as well, to show off what we have. It's pretty nice.
You say a chatty pace, but the first half of that climb up, I'm gonna say it again, the Ba.
Perfect.
Thank you. The first half is like, it's really steady, and you can go and it's chatty, but then it starts getting steeper, and then you suddenly see on your Garmin the reds are going dark blood red and darker blood red as you're getting more to the top, and then you're looking up and you can see like a wall that starts to then twist and go like this, and you're thinking, there's only a mile left, but look at that, it's like a wall. and then it's not. I didn't find it very chatty for a little while after that. But then you get to the top, and wow, incredible. And we even had some blue skies, and there was a stag waiting for us on the edge of the cliff top. I got a really good picture of it. It was beautiful.
And you're looking over to the Cuillins and Skye. And for those who haven't had the opportunity to travel to the Highlands in the northwest of Scotland, this is an iconic cycling climb. It goes from sea level up 2,000 feet and then smashes straight back down to sea level again. So it's pretty special, isn't it?
Yeah, and to be able to see the view, because you don't always see the view when you get to the top. Sometimes you end up stuck in the clouds and you think, all that hard work and I don't even get a view. So we were really lucky. We were very lucky yesterday.
Especially in late October.
Absolutely. And no headwind. Can you imagine doing that wall with a grueling headwind? It can be pretty interesting.
And then once you're coming around the coastline again, for those who want to explore the northwest, you go around to Shieldaig, Torridon, and it stays unrelenting. So you don't have the epic climb, you don't have the 2,000 foot up and down, but it's there's actually more elevation gain in that section of the route than there is in the big climb. So it's pretty tough on the legs. Like most days where you're filming, we massively underestimated it and ended up doing the last hour in the dark. But all good fun. And actually, you were reflecting on that, so maybe that's a good place to go in the conversation. For what you were chatting, you've always seen yourself as a one-day specialist, doing these events, doing incredibly hard endurance challenges, but then you get to have a beer, relax, and the next day you can reflect on that. This whole idea of riding into the dark, ultra endurance, like I could see, even despite everything you've done in your career, that sort of mischief, that glee, as we turned our lights on and rode into the dark last night.
Yeah. So I've predominantly kind of focused on, as you would say, the one-day events, the big one-day events. So I've taken part in Celtman a few times, and as you said, also completed the Norseman. And although a one-day event which lasts 11, 12, 13 hours you think is quite a long time, you can kind of smash it out. And the training for that is, you tend to be training in daylight, let's say. And more recently, I've discovered a more adventure side to endurance. And that does mean, cycling at very early hours of the morning where the sun isn't up, or at night. And it is this different type of adventure. And it's almost mischief. You feel that you're, should I be doing this? Or it's actually reflecting on, most people are sitting in front of the fire or sitting at home now, and I'm out here on my bike in the cold when it's 3 degrees, add some rain or snow, even better. And it is this kind of sense of, it's not that bad. You can kind of do this. You almost feel superior, I want to say.
Well, you're creating memories, aren't you? You're doing something which it's not just the sun is shining and it's easy and it's fun. It's hard enough to be like, I'm going to remember this. Yeah. Which is something quite special about anything endurance, isn't it? It's that sense of you've put yourself somewhere difficult and you're going to remember it because it is remarkable. It is the hard bit / the fun bit. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure, again, in the context of what you've just done, Martin, I think it'd be good to cover the basics. What got you into Ironman distance, these events, the bike. For those who haven't followed your journey, where did it all come from? So I used to be a elite level modern pentathlete. So for people who don't know, that's running, swimming, shooting, horse riding, and fencing. And I trained with the British team, and then my mum's Irish, so moved across to representing Ireland later on. And the full focus was on the Tokyo Olympics, and I went to the test event for the Olympics in 2019. And woke up one day and thought, actually, the Olympics isn't my dream anymore. I want to do something else. So I got a job, and my dad was training for Celtman, and my sister has previously done Celtman. So for those who are unfamiliar, Celtman is a extreme Ironman event in Scotland. It's a 3.4 kilometre swim in jellyfish infested waters and freezing conditions, where we actually rode past yesterday. We rode past the start.
It's a 200-kilometer bike ride, and it's a marathon which goes over Benet, epic mountain on the west coast, which we also cycled past yesterday, and there was snow on the top. And my dad was, he was training, so I bought a second-hand bike off Gumtree, a cross bike. I thought, I'll just join him for a bit. So I joined him a little bit, and then I started doing some more hill running, and I really found this freedom in the adventure of not focusing on your splits. I had been so focused within modern pentathlon on specific intervals, being really structured. So it was such a kind of liberating feeling to be enjoying athletics or getting out there, but not having these metrics that you have to stick with. And then in the end, they opened up some extra slots for Celtman 7 weeks before. And I said, Dad, do you mind if I steal your thunder and I also do it as well? And he said, okay, fine, but you have to find your own support crew, because that's one thing about Celtman. You have a support crew that does it with you. So I managed to group together some close friends, and I did the Celtman just with a road bike and some clip-on TT bars. I had I didn't know how I could do. I didn't know if I could finish it, and in the end, it went pretty well, and I won, and I broke the course record. I was like, oh wow, okay, maybe this is something that could be quite good. And then I qualified for Norseman.
I mean, just pause a second. That's massively understated. That is, it's legitimately the hardest, Ironman event in the UK.
Had you done any triathlons before that?
No.
No, like half Ironman to build up to it. No Olympic distance. No sprint triathlon. Nothing.
No.
Straight into the Celtman.
Because I think and this is the difference between performance endurance and adventure endurance. So I was coming at it as the angle of, this is one big adventure. This is an adventure day. The type of training that I'd been doing was getting up before sunrise, running up a mountain, and then being at my desk at 8 a.m. and not worrying about my heart rate or any of these kind of metrics which you would normally focus on when you're training for a shorter distance triathlon. And I think with an event like the Celtman, that kind of mindset where it's the adventure within the training session. So each little training session is a little adventure within itself. It's like the end race is just a accumulation of all these micro adventures. It really sets you up on a great headspace to be able to do a race like this, whereas a more traditional flatter distance triathlon where you maybe don't have these extra elements of wind, rain, snow,
and how was the weather on the day?
So the weather on the day on the first time I did it was quite good. I do remember very bad headwind from Garve to Kinlochhew. That was also probably because my nutrition consisted of peanut butter sandwiches, which I was immediately spewing out. What else did I have? I had no gels, no kind of traditional performance nutrition. And yeah, maybe I learned a little bit after that, okay, this is great from the adventure side of things, but if I do want to go faster, then maybe I need to start looking at...
But that was the one you won.
Yes, that was...
So, peanut butter sandwiches, no traditional nutrition, no gels.
No coach, no sponsors.
No coach, no sponsors.
7 weeks into it. Yeah. I think, but what happened there, I mean, during COVID, we had this, I think everybody had so much more time to do different things. You weren't necessarily meeting up with your friends as much. You couldn't do these other things. And I filled my life with this new adventure. And the adventure was finding local places to run, finding local hills, finding paths that I'd never been on. I had this old cross bike, and I would do these kind of off-road loops and then loop back onto on-road, and got so much enjoyment out of it. And it was the natural stimulus of, I was going hard because I was going up a hill. I didn't need a coach. I didn't need a Garmin. I didn't need all these things that people normally think they need in place to be able to achieve this type of goal. You can actually do it in so many different ways. And I remember being at the start line. I was so full with energy, with all these adventures that I had done. And even now, reflecting back on that first build-up period to that race, I had just got a van. I was sleeping at the bottom of mountains and then running up the mountain and racing back for the 8 a.m. meeting. And it was so, like, my soul felt full with all these little micro adventures. So then, yeah, on the day, I guess I was in such a great place mentally, and I guess the training had...
I love that concept. I mean, we should definitely follow the thread through in terms of, you know, what happened in subsequent years. But that idea that you've just posed around the training being part of the adventure. So when you get to the main event, the thing that is the goal, is the dream. Clearly, it's massively important, and you pack everything into that. But it also slightly takes the pressure off it, because you're not relying on that one moment in time to define that season or that event. Because, you know, rather than just sort of saying, well, I've followed my coach, or I followed a schedule and I've smashed it on my training, as almost like your homework for, that's actually part of the adventure. And there was a phrase that you used, I can't remember what it was, but it was adventure versus performance. That's an interesting concept. Like, how do you, I guess that's as much about how you think about it than the physical side of it. Just like turning every bit of training into a mini adventure.
Yeah. So I see it as adventure endurance versus performance endurance.
Okay.
And they're quite different mindsets. But I think, you know, you can find adventure everywhere. And it doesn't need to be, we glorify these, everyone's doing an expedition or everyone's doing something massive. Well, actually, the cycle we did yesterday, finishing in the dark and doing that route in kind of quite cold conditions where there's snow on the top of the mountains.
Freezing.
Yeah, that was an adventure. But even like finding your lunchtime walk, a new office, you move to a new place, like finding little routes, like those types of things can be adventure is what you make it. It can be whatever you want. You don't need other people to define it for you. It can be however you want to perceive it.
Love that.
Yeah. So Celtman, what year? 2021?
2021, yeah.
2021. What was the gap then between Celtman and Norseman? And can you tell us a little bit about Norseman? Because I'd not heard a lot about Celtman until literally yesterday. But Norseman I've heard lots about, and how tough it is, and it's the toughest equivalent of Ironman in the world. And how did you perform there compared to Celtman? What position did you come? You're telling me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I qualified for Norseman through the X-Tri World Series, which Celtman is a part of. And I had thought, okay, I'm going to do this. My sister had also done Norseman after she had won Celtman, and she had come fourth at Norseman, and I actually went across with her when she did that. And I remember going across thinking, why on earth would anyone ever want to do this? But here I was, 6 years later, it was my turn. So I had decided actually that, so Norseman is in August, and I wanted something else. I didn't want Norseman to be the year. It's kind of what I said. I didn't want to be defined my whole year on this Norseman performance. So I decided to do Celtman again. So in that year, I did Celtman, and 6 weeks later I did Norseman. And the way I approached it to try to not put any pressure on Norseman was I tried to just focus on Celtman and do what I had been doing the last year, but make some improvements. And I would say I was a bit more structured within my training. I bought a time trial bike. So, immediately you're kind of talking about aero position. You're talking about all these things which before I had never even considered. And Celtman went well again. And
Better or similar?
Well, I won it, and I won it by quite a big margin. And that was really special because my whole family were there.
This idea of sort of racing yourself, how did your year 2 compare to your year 1? I mean, yes, you were more structured, but I mean, I don't just mean the time that you did, although I am interested in that. Just like, how did you feel in terms of like your performance on the day?
I felt nervous before.
Higher expectations?
Higher expectations. It didn't feel as much of an adventure. It was because I knew what was coming. It was, more nervous, more apprehensive. I think I had felt I'd put more into it.
More refined.
Yeah.
Each element.
With each element. I had maybe sacrificed more within my training. I had been more structured. I had been more, let's just say more focus onto it. So I would say that, I was apprehensive. I remember the night before lying in my van in Shieldig and knowing that we have to get up at 2 a.m. and not sleeping at all. And my alarm going off, and my dad came and to help me with the transition. I didn't sleep last night at all. And so, even that, I mean, the year before I was 8 p.m. I was out, not even thinking about it. So it was quite different, the approach to it. Yeah.
And did you beat the time the second time of the first time?
So the second time, because the weather was bad, they have a low course option where you can't go up to the mountain. So I didn't actually get to compare my times, and it was a completely different experience because, the weather was absolutely horrific.
But that tells you something about the event. The fact that you're going over a Munro. Is it Munro?
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact you're going over a Munro, Scottish mountain of over 3,000, that element section, you don't have that if you're going to Croatia or, Berlin or something. It's just, yes, you might get a bit of weather, but it's not going to be, the Scottish Highlands with everything thrown at you where you literally can't go to 3,000 feet because it's blowing a hoolie. And then this idea of taking 6 weeks to recover. Well, talk about those 6 weeks and then what happened in Norway. Because, again, for those who aren't familiar with, I mean, Norseman is famous not just in Norway, but globally. I mean, it really is a respected, extreme Ironman event. And am I right in saying that you start on a boat, you're out in a fjord? I mean, just paint a picture as to a bit about the prep, living up in the Highlands of Scotland, but then also the day itself.
Yeah, so I was reflecting yesterday whilst we were on the ride. One of my big sessions in between Celtman and Norseman was driving across to the bottom of the Billach on a Friday night after work, parking my van up, cycling the Billach na Ba and the coastal route, which was part of the route that we did yesterday, dumping my bike in the car and then running up the mountain, up the Billach na Ba, and actually even further up because there's a mast that you can go up, as one of my kind of big prep sessions. And then thumbing a lift back down from an Applecross local who, when he asked, "What are you doing?" and I explained, I think he had not got the faintest idea. He couldn't quite get his head around it. So, but when I did that, I knew, okay, I think I'm ready for Norseman. And then going across to Norway, again, at this point, I have no coach, no sponsors. I've never done a traditional Ironman. Nobody knows who I am, really. Norseman is, as you said, more famous, and there are some kind of more professional type of athletes who do the race. I mean, it still is more of an adventure race rather than a kind of professional level Ironman. And actually, a funny story, when I went to the registration for Norseman, I was with my dad. My family are really supportive. My mum and dad came out to support me. And the woman at registration gave the number to my dad, said, "Oh, good luck." And he said, "Oh, no, I'm not doing it. It's her." And she said, do you know what you're signing up for? Or have you looked at the race? So that was really funny. And that was, if I wasn't feeling nervous enough already.
Did you not feel slightly patronised by that?
No, I think in a way it's quite liberating, this underdog feeling, when nobody knows who you are. You've got no expectation. Of course, okay, I'd done quite well in Celtman, but nobody really knows who I am in this kind of arena. So it's quite nice. I would much prefer that to then saying, "Oh, didn't you win Celtman twice?" Like, ah! So the day of Norseman, again, it starts really early. You're on the ferry at 4 a.m. You get off ferry out to the middle of the fjord, completely pitch black. The fjord, it goes from sea level all the way up to 1,200 meters. And it was a kind of cloudy sky, so it was really dark. and it was slight drizzle, and you jump off the back of the ferry. Everybody jumping off, kind of this amazing thing. What on earth are we doing in August on a Saturday morning? And I remember, I have this vivid memory when I'm on the start line. So you all swim to kind of an area and you have to gather before I think it was a hooter that they said, or just go. And somebody, a man who was right beside me saying, "Oh, it's not every day you do this, is it?" And I just remember that feeling, because sometimes we can be so caught up in the moment that you don't appreciate what a privilege it is to have these opportunities and to do these things. And he's right. Yes, here we are, able to financially afford this adventure, to have the health, to have trained for it, to have the support crew to be able to there supporting you. And it's that kind of reflection which I think also helps performance, because being grateful for something is a really interesting feeling. Yeah.
What an amazing concept. And how did you do in the end then?
Yeah, so in the end, it went pretty well.
You're going to have to translate pretty well.
I do already know the answer, by the way.
So in the end, it went very well, and I won. And I won by quite a big margin again. And I also, and again, as I said, nobody really knew who I was. It was a bit of a surprise. I didn't wear a tri-suit. Again, I was although I had been more focused on the training,
You didn't wear a tri-suit. So can you quickly talk me through like the setup? So normally you'd wear a wetsuit, generally with a tri-suit underneath, transition bike, whip off your cycling shoes, chuck on your trainers, still in your tri-suit, and chuck on your baseball cap and go and do the run. What was your setup from start to finish?
So with Norseman, and particularly in this the day that they had it, it was freezing cold conditions. So you cycle up to the Hardanger Plateau, and it was actually 3 degrees and snowing in August there.
Wow.
So I had some cycling bib shorts underneath my wetsuit, and then I put on some base layers before the cycle, and then after the cycle I went into transition, and there was loads of people there, and I just said, "Turn around, I'm stripping." And I just whapped off all my clothes, and my dad was there with the towel trying to cover me. And put on some shorts and put on a top, and I mean, it's such a long day, you want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think being in a freezing cold tri-suit all day is actually, you might think that there are some gains from the time it takes within transition, but you have to think about the other aspects of that, getting cold, or like even maybe it's just not as comfortable for such a long event.
Yeah.
I mean, you're finishing the run section at the end, finishes on top of a mountain. You literally are, I mean, talk about the run.
Yeah, so the majority of the run is actually the first half of the run is on a flat road, and then you go up a ski road, which is called Zombie Mountain. And the reason I had ran up the Bíleach na Ba a few weeks before was kind of in preparation for this. And then the last 5K is up this side of Gaustatoppen, which is the highest mountain in southern Norway. And it has an unbelievable views, unbelievable scenery. Okay, I didn't take any of that into sight until I was actually at the top. And you have to have a support runner for the last bit. So my dad was my support runner.
So just hold there a second. What's the support runner? He's in a vehicle next to you, or he's running alongside you?
You have to have someone running alongside you.
So you've got to have someone pretty fit that can keep up with you.
Why?
For safety reasons, because the weather can change so quickly. And although when we did it, it was beautiful, clear skies, it can be minus temperatures in summer, snowing. It can be quite dangerous. And if you think you've done quite a few hours already on that day, you could be delirious. You could be just not quite make the right kind of decisions. So yeah, for safety reasons,
it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
After you won, did you ever get to meet the lady on the registration desk that asked if you were in the right place? That'd be lovely closure to that story.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
What was the reaction? I mean, I guess starting with your reaction, did you surprise yourself, or did you kind of know that you were going in it to win it? And then I'm really interested to know other people's reaction. You know, you work for a Norwegian company, you've got lots of Norwegian friends, but it's a globally respected event. You know, that I'm just interested to know how you felt about it and how the world reacted to it.
I think, well, nobody knew who I was. No coach, no sponsors, no big kind of palaver on social media. It appeared that I had just turned up and won and done a pretty fast time. And so the first question everyone had was, what next? What next? And I never really said it before, or never even really said it at the time, but it was a huge amount of work and commitment to train for the event, to balance it with my job, with my Norwegian colleagues who couldn't get their head around it, because to them, the Norseman is the hardest event on the entire world. And it was that sense of, after the immediate kind of sense of, wow, I did that, I can't believe I did that, it was almost a pressure to, oh no, I have to, what do I do now? Or how do I live up to this image that I've portrayed, or image that everybody thinks of me as this warrior who can just turn up, when in actual practice, the training that I had done for that event was really significant and took a huge amount of focus within my life. So it took a while to kind of get to grips with how people perceived me after that. And I think it's even something now which I have to balance, because people expect when I turn up to different things, I mean, oh yeah, you'll be fine, you'll be the fastest. And no, I'm not. I'm just been enjoying my life. I haven't been kind of in this structured training program or however it is. So it's that interesting perspective is why do you care how people perceive you? But then also you do care a little bit. So it was quite an interesting few months after Norseman. And then I actually moved to Norway. The Norseman was on the Saturday. I moved to Norway on the Monday. My parents dropped me off at the office in Oslo, and I lived for a year in Stavanger, and again trying to make friends within meet a new community of people in Stavanger, and talking to people, and then them finding out that you recently won Norseman. It's not really the best way to make friends, because they're immediately a bit intimidated with you, or they have this perception of you which actually in reality might not be quite right.
Did you learn some Norwegian?
A little bit.
Can you say something?
No.
The Endurance Podcast is brought to you in partnership with Enjoy Travel. Huge thanks for all that they do. And I don't need to introduce my co-host, but over to Martin Mansell to explain Enjoy Travel.
So Enjoy Travel brings you car hire, hotels, airport parking lounges with a loyalty platform, meaning you buy 9, you get your 10th free. And you can mix and match across any range of our products. You don't need to just buy 10 car hire, you could buy a hotel, a car hire. And we're giving you a special discount code to celebrate our podcast, which is RID3R, as in rider, and you'll get up to 30% off everything.
So click on Enjoy Travel. It's been amazing for these epics, makes our travel so much more enjoyable and seamless. So thanks Martin, thanks Enjoy Travel. You're not a full-time athlete, you're not professional, but clearly you've taken on sport to a pretty elite level. How do you think about challenges now? And maybe as a way of getting into that, over the last year, you've taken some time out, you've taken a sabbatical, you're back at work now, but there's been a few twists and turns in that, and I'm fascinated into that. What motivates you? What motivates anyone?
Yeah.
Like how do you get out there and do stuff which is pushing your endurance, however you define that? And that idea really in endurance is that, yeah, of course you might enter an event, but the only person you're really racing is yourself. You're trying to figure out what you're capable of and why do you do that?
Yeah, and I think that question of why is so interesting. And often we find ourselves, well, I do, especially find myself moving from one event to another, and you almost don't have time to take a step back to say, what is my why? And have that reflection. And this year I took some time off work, and the original plan was to focus fully on triathlon and being the best athlete that I could be. And I quickly realized, without, the 9 to 5 grind, and taking a lot of my mental capacity away, I had the extra space to kind of question, why am I doing this? And I realized that actually the triathlon and the elite level and the performance level endurance, it kind of wasn't for me anymore. And I was more interested in adventure endurance, in bike packing, in cycling through the dark, in a different kind of adventure. And I'm still reconnecting with my why, or reflecting on what my motivation is. But I think where I get to is through the bike packing, I've been to some amazing places, and you meet so many different people, and you have amazing self-reflection through people's stories. And also, reflecting on the way people live. And that, I think, is enough motivation for me at the moment to be able to, I want to be fit enough to go and do these adventures where I explore the world rather than exploring the white line on the road with the TT bike.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So where do you have any idea where you go next? So could you see yourself, for example, cycling around the world? Or could you see yourself doing something incredibly long? Because everything, as I understand it, everything you've done so far, the majority, has been like single-day events, high power, high strength, massive training, but single-day events, Norseman, Celtman, Ironman. Could you see yourself stretching that to cycling across a continent or something like that, perhaps?
Is that a leading question, Martin?
I'm just interested.
Well, I'd never say never. But I think with these kind of events, you really have to have the grit and the fire and the focus to do them. And I'm very good at putting on blinkers when I put an event in the diary and training specifically for that event and avoiding the noise outside. But what I'm beginning to realize is that actually letting some of that noise outside, whether it's going for a ride with your pal to the cafe, or doing something different with friends, is actually, there's a lot of benefit to that. And some people may be able to focus on a big race, but also be able to do these, have a more flexible mindset with training. But I find that quite difficult. So at the moment, I'm trying to just let myself be, not focus on the next big event or even know what the next big thing will be, because I'm sure there'll be something at some point, and be okay with it and let it come to me rather than chasing it.
So, I mean, growth or development as an athlete is quite a selfish endeavour, because you are physically pushing yourself, psychologically learning, etc., etc. But what you're alluding to is that sort of wider growth in terms of what else can I mean, it's great to be young and there's certain things that you have to do at certain points in your life. If you're going to, the wonderful thing about endurance is young, old, male, female, we can all go further. But if you want to do that super high performance stuff, you're not going to do it in your 80s. And therefore, prioritizing your life in terms of, and it's that privilege, and it is a privilege to be able to go and do really hard stuff physically, is amazing. But then the point that you're making is like, how do you explore other stuff? Culture, place, happiness, community. But it doesn't need to be, I guess, an either or. It doesn't need to be a zero-sum game. I guess I've always felt that if you are trying to take on a record or a race, you do need to be quite sort of blinkered about that, because if you don't prioritize it in your life, you're never going to do it. You're always going to regret that you didn't say no to other stuff. I think back to my career and I go, well, I didn't drink wine, which I love doing, for years of my life because I was focused on training. And I didn't ski for 10 years, even though I'm a passionate skier, because I couldn't risk injury. while I was a bike rider. So there are sacrifices you make. So then to your point, you're like, well, yes, but then you're not experiencing everything. But life is choices, isn't it? You got to make those choices. And I think it's interesting just hearing you chat, because you clearly are somebody who's quite competitive, even if it is with yourself, but then trying to sort of soften that and say, well, there's other ways of growing other than just, improving my FTP and smashing it as an athlete. But then you don't want to turn off that flame inside, do you? You want to keep that sort of, it's entrepreneurship, isn't it? It's mischief. It's that because that flame inside you, however it sort of shows up, is something which is that freedom of time. Like how am I gonna, I guess within that ramble, how important is it for you to have something you're working towards, and how much do you think can it just be the life I lead? This is my lifestyle and these are the choices I make, or do you think there always has to be an end goal to structure everything else?
It's so interesting, because this is the exact question that I have right now, and trying to figure out what that is and what that looks like. I would like to say that the goal should be to have this holy grail of balance, which I clearly don't have, or I clearly need to work towards. But I would be lying if I said the fact that I don't have this big goal right now is scary, because it is, because there then is part of you which thinks, but what if that was it? What if what I did, what if I can never do it again? Or what if I don't ever do another big goal? And it's kind of coming to terms with, but that's okay, because there will be something else, and it will come when it's right. I mean, I'm not religious, or I don't necessarily have faith, but I do think that what is right for you will come to you, but you have to be open for whatever that may be. And that we're also running in the world, or we're seeing what other people are doing in social media or on the news, or it seems that everybody is doing something, working towards something at the highest level, and nobody really talks about the people who are balancing it all and getting that balancing act between their physical goals, their family, their career. And that's what I'm really interested in at the moment. So I'm sure when we talk again in 6 months and I tell you that I'm planning to cycle around the world, that's going to be another.
No, it's good to even acknowledge that growth. Well, Martin and I obviously do have a big endurance challenge next summer at the end of this podcast series, and for Martin on this sort of trilogy, this 3-year mission around Yorkshire to the south of France, length of so down to the Med, and then across Europe, going bigger every year, taking on challenges. Any thoughts, tips? We're end of October now, so we've got a bit of time to think ahead. Any sort of wisdom or thoughts in terms of Martin's amazing step up from really discovering the bike not that many years ago, with a background in different sports, to then massively trying to push your endurance and everything we're doing here in terms of trying to share it and unlock people's ambitions. I mean, there's a lot which is relatable here, but I don't know if you've got any reflections having done it yourself over the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Well, I've not quite done it because I haven't cycled the length of Europe in that way. But we did have a chat yesterday when we were on the bike, Martin. And I think it was quite interesting because you were immediately thinking, I need to be doing all this big stuff now. I need to big rides back to back. And the advice I would give is hold something back, because the most important thing is that it gets to that first day and you're full mentally. You're full, your soul is full, because at the end, it will be a mental battle. And it's very easy, especially at this point of time when we set these big goals, to kind of go all in right from the start. And you can find yourself burning out pretty quickly. And that could be from not taking the opportunities to visit friends and families because you're making these sacrifices. And that does wear you down in different ways that you might not expect. And actually, there's so much value in occasionally taking the afternoon off to spend time with your family, to go on the Sunday row, to go for Sunday rows, to eat the cake, to do all these things which give you some kind of form of endorphins, but maybe aren't very good for your performance. But in the end, come April, May, when you are doing these big rides, you'll feel the huge benefit of holding the reins back on this at this point.
Yeah, it is really interesting because, so clearly I have a balance to try and find between doing how I perceive the right amount of training over the next 8 or 9 months, what I'm being told is the right amount of training, which yesterday in our conversations differed from what I felt was the right amount of training. I've got a coach that Mark introduced, Pav, who's trying to get me to train in a different way too. Balancing, there's already kind of 3 conflicting elements there with running a business, with having a growing team, and bigger ambitions within the business for the next years ahead, and then balancing that with family life and balancing that with the things you just talked about. So what did you have similar kind of conflicts? Obviously you don't have a family as in a husband and children yet, but
Yet, hopefully.
or sorry, maybe not yet, maybe who knows, they're different topic, but for the moment.
But that is, like when certainly when the kids are involved, because I have definitely found that I used to sort of justify my training and my events because it would in some way inspire and inform them. They couldn't care less. They just want you to be around.
Yeah.
They couldn't care less that you're cycling around planet Earth.
Yeah.
And you sort of making yourself feel better about it because you think it's in some way going to make them better people. Forget that. They just want you to be there. Just be present. But I guess whether it's your kids or it's your friends, it's, being out there and sort of doing something because you think you're helping them. Actually, the best thing you can do is just show up and spend time with them.
Yeah.
But it's comparable for you too, isn't it? Right, because you're clearly very career focused and focused on your career and your job, and congratulations on being promoted. You move into a new city imminently, I believe. How did you balance kind of all that stuff over the years as you've gone for Celtman, Norseman, other things you've done? How did you balance your training with your life?
Well, the answer is
Or
I
did
didn't.
you not? Yeah, there you go.
I didn't balance anything, and I could do with some help in that area. So, Martin, if you find the Holy Grail, then let me know. But I think that's interesting, and that's kind of where I would like to maybe focus on the next few months to try and find that balance. As you said, I'm moving to Newcastle, and I'll need to find new friends, my people, and that's not necessarily cycling a bike on your own for 6 hours on a Saturday and 6 hours on a Sunday doesn't really help you towards that goal of finding new friends and finding new people. So yeah, that's I'm in the same kind of quandary at the moment.
So do you have any worries or conflicts in your mind that if you don't get to cycle or train or run or swim for certain amounts of time throughout the week, or a bare minimum of whatever it might be, do you have any worries that you're going to become really unfit or not be able to get going again, or not be able to do anything big in the future because you've left it, even if it's a few weeks, and not trained the way you used to train? And does that worry you? Or
Yeah, and I would be lying if I said it didn't. Because for me, the training is such a huge part of my life, but I also know that I have so many other benefits from the training. It's not training just necessarily for the sake of training to be fit. It's also because it gives me that mental clarity at work. I sleep better. It's just all the general benefits of having kind of a healthy lifestyle. So I've kind of reflected actually on that a lot, that during this kind of time of uncertainty and change, I do need to make sure I'm prioritizing getting one thing in a day. It doesn't necessarily matter what it is, whether it's a run, a swim, a gym, a bike, and it doesn't matter what I do, but I know that I'll feel better for it from a mental perspective. I think physically, a few weeks off probably does your body quite good actually. But I know that I need it from a mental perspective to be able to perform in all the areas of my life. I definitely perform better at work when I'm in some form of regular routine with exercising.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I completely can agree with that from a personal perspective too. But what if, let's say, you can only is there like a minimum that you'll need to train every day, even if it's half an hour, 45 minutes, or is that too little? Does it have to be at least an hour for a bike ride? Like half an hour is not very long, for example. Maybe it's okay for a run. Is there like a minimum that you have to do every day to feel like you've done enough?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, 6 years ago I would go for a half an hour run and I would get enough endorphins to last me for the day, and then you go longer and longer and longer, and before you know it, you have to ride for 4 hours before you get the same endorphins. It's like an addict. You need more and more and more of it. But I think it's using the tools that you have. So, for example, at the office, they have a watt bikes, which is amazing, and doing some intervals. You can do pretty good session within 45 minutes, an hour. So it's about, for me, it will be about, this is the time I have. What can I do in that time to make the most of it? And sometimes it will just be a half an hour run, because that'll be all I can manage from a time wise, but also mentally I'll just want to kind of zone out for half an hour. So I'm not sure how that looks. I have an idea. And I think the most important thing is recognizing, the tools you have and working within yourself and being clear on those boundaries as well, and understanding that, okay, I'm not training for a goal, but doing this is going to help me with work. It's going to make me feel better. It's going to give me all those other benefits that you need in life.
I think that's the main thing I'm going to take from this conversation, and it's been amazing, because this idea of everyone having, big goals, big challenges, and, things which you talk about and people know you for. But then ultimately, lifestyle. And, what you've mainly talked about is lifestyle and family, support networks, motivation. Because that struggle is real, and it's not a bad thing. It's like, we're always, like, for different chapters in our lives, our priorities change. And so I don't think there is a steady state, constant state. And just because you've done something which you felt was really important in that time period, once it's gone, it's like, well, life carries on. And then you've got to figure out how to prioritize your time differently. So it's amazing, because you are in your career driving hard in that sense, and, have taken on these amazing challenges. I think it's really interesting capturing this conversation right now at a point where you've actually just sort of stepped back a little bit and went, well, I need that. I need adventure. I need endurance. I need everything that gives me. But how that fits into everything else, I think, is incredibly relatable. Because, during the Endurance podcast series, we're going to talk to pro athletes where sport is their life. That's everything they do. And maybe that's a bit more one-dimensional. But I think your story is wonderfully relatable to so many listeners and viewers, because you are juggling so much, and you've clearly got that mischief, you've clearly got that fire inside you, but you're also trying to figure out how you take family with you and friends, and like, this is something that's not just selfish to the point that it becomes detrimental. So we're gonna wrap it up now. The ride was amazing yesterday. Thank you for joining us.
Great fun. Really
good.
good.
Whether we talk you into doing a big ride or not, I look forward to keeping in touch and seeing what you do next.
Me too. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Thanks very much.
Great.
It's been brilliant. I really hope you enjoyed listening to or watching this episode on endurance.
It's great fun to get out for the rides, record the podcast as well. Please leave a comment, leave a question, subscribe, tell your friends, and we'll get more amazing conversations soon.